The meeting of the Brainerd Public Utilities Commission to order. We'll have roll call.
Higgins.
Here.
Matten.
Here.
O'Day.
Here.
Angland.
Okay, we'll stand for pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And next item is approval of the agenda. It's not on. Sorry. Approval of the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Consent calendar. This is notice to the public. All matters listed are considered routine by the commission and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the time the commission votes on the motion to be adopted by roll call. Is there any changes?
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call?
Higgins.
Aye.
Matten.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes. Next item is public forum. Time allocated for citizens to bring matters not on the agenda to the attention of the commission. Time limits may be imposed. Anyone here for public forum? No, thank you. Okay, number 7 is Clifton Larson Allen audit presentation.
Thank you for having us today. I'm Mary Reedy, been principal on the job.
I'm Eric Smedrud. I'm the manager on the job.
We will present to you today like we have in the past. So in front of you, you should have your PowerPoint. Then you also have your bound document. We'll go through the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint ties back to your financial statements, but feel free to stop us at any time if you have any questions as they come up. So we'll start with page 2 there, the agenda. We'll go through some required communications. We'll go through the audit results, financial results, and then any key issue or summary items that came. So our primary responsibility as auditors to provide an opinion on the fairness of the financial statements. We do review internal accounting controls. We want to make sure that there are controls in place and that they're working. Risk-based audit approach, meaning we don't test every transaction. We do some detail level transaction testing, and then we do some higher level transaction testing, current year compared to prior year. Make sure everything looks reasonable. Significant accounting policies, those are going to be outlined in note 1. New standard this year was GASB 101, so we address compensated absences, just a little bit different way that we have to look at it and assess it going forward. So we did adjust those. Page 4, so there are management judgments and accounting estimates. Obviously, comp abs, I talked about one of them, but there are a few in there. Corrected and uncorrected, no corrected misstatements, so the information you're getting is accurate month to month. Uncorrected adjustment with GASB 101, we had to go back and reassess beginning of the balance, and we did pass on that since it was immaterial. So next year that won't be there. Okay. No disagreements with management there, page 5 then. No difficulties encountered in performing the audit. Came out, was able to get everything we needed and wrap up the audit. Page 6, overall audit results, so an unmodified opinion, so highest level of assurance that us as auditors can give. No findings noted overall on the financial statements. Danny is able to review those and do everything. They have segregation of duties over there, so no findings, very clean audit. Minnesota Leo compliance, we come in and test those areas and no findings noted there either. So then Eric will go over the financial results.
Okay. So first we have kind of looking at Brainerd Public Utilities as a whole, so all 3 departments within there. So overall you did have an increase over the last year for revenues and expenses. They kind of coincide with each other. The main reason for that increase in revenues was the rate increases in all 3 departments as well. You did have an increase in usage. So you had a pretty consistent year with the previous years for overall change in net position, and you had a total increase of about $2.2 million for the year. We will go into the different departments individually in a couple of slides in just a moment. So On the next slide, we do look at kind of a comparison between the different departments as a breakout by percentage. So overall, there was no change, very consistent with the different types of revenues you are receiving. The next slide is looking at then your expenses by operations. So you did have a slight change in the breakout for kind of shifting more towards electric. That was primarily because of that purchase power adjustment you do have. You had a huge increase in your usage there. And so it kind of just shifts based on which department has more expenses in any given year. Next, we'll look at the electric department by itself. So you can see here you did have a pretty significant increase over the last year for both revenues and expenses. You did have a pretty large increase in your industrial customer usage. You also had, kind of influencing that was your rate increase, but I think it was about a $5 million increase in your purchase power adjustment as well, which was shown for that huge increase in expenses. Overall, still a positive gain in that position, so doing pretty well. The next is looking at your cost and revenue per kilowatt hour sold. You did have a decrease in that margin of revenues over expenses, but that's it shifts depending on who you're primarily providing services to. You might get a better rate for one customer over the other, but you still had a positive gain this year, but something to keep looking at going forward. Next up is your water department. So for the first time in the last 3 years, you did finally have revenues over expenses. You did have a pretty large project going on the last 2 years, and so you're finally starting to see gains from that. You did have an increase in rates as well as usage compared to last year. So make sure to keep looking at it, and hopefully going forward it continues to be running in the positive. You did end up having, for the first time, also a positive increase in that position. So looking good there. Next is the cost and revenues per 1,000 gallons sold. So you did have a pretty consistent margin compared with last year, slight increase because of those rate increases. So definitely looking good there, but always keep that in mind going forward. Next up is the wastewater department. So just like last year, you did have revenues over expenses, but you do see kind of an increase in that gap compared to last year. Something that did change last year was we recommended eliminating kind of internal services provided between the departments. So like for electric usage by the wastewater department, we removed that for proper financial presentation so that you're purely looking at what the wastewater department is doing on a yearly basis. Overall, a positive increase in that position, about $1.7 million, so very good. The next is the margin for cost and revenue per 1,000 gallons processed, so very consistent with last year. You did have a slight increase, I believe, in the wastewater treatment department side of things. So you do see a slight increase, but very consistent and something to make sure you keep consistent going forward.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Can you back up a slide? Explain to me what you just said about the electric not being charged for wastewater.
So it's still being charged, but for our purposes, because we only present Brainerd Public Utilities as one kind of opinion unit, we call it. So we have to eliminate any internal costs and revenue in each department. So it doesn't affect each department. It's just more noticeable in this one because of the electricity used in all those departments is pretty significant.
Where is that expense picked up then?
That is in the electric department then. So it's still there, it's just, you're essentially removing that and putting it back in the department it's incurred.
Do we know how much that is?
Danny would be able to provide that information,
Okay,
right?
that's fine. I'll ask him later. Thank you.
Yeah, we do have that, because it is a entry Danny does provide to us. So
Got it.
the numbers you guys are getting are before that adjustment is made. So you're able to kind of account for that. Any other questions? That was about it on that cost of 1,000 gallons processed, so the net position. One more slide. So here is looking at your overall net positions, kind of your retained earnings left in the Brainerd Public Utilities. So you did have an increase last year. That top line is your investment in capital assets. So that's, you're continually investing in your infrastructure, so that line keeps going up. Definitely, it's used to support your operations. So that's kind of your most important item on your balance sheet. Next slide is looking at your total cash and investments. So you can see here you have had a decrease over the last year, but that's primarily due to repayment of debt issuances. That one big increase was you've had a bond issuance prior to year end that you had for a project in the following year. You just hadn't spent those funds yet, but you're still at about $6 million. So sitting pretty comfortably. Next is your total capital assets. So it's kind of by department. You can see here general increase in each of those buckets. You did have a pretty big increase in the water department last year. This is for, I believe, the $2 million gallon storage that you put in. But generally, the electric and your wastewater and water treatment are your main operations. So the next couple slides are just kind of higher level financial highlights. I won't read it word for word. It's kind of just putting it into words what we just went over. So electric revenues did increase because of the increase in usage, and you did have a pretty huge increase in that purchase power adjustment because of that. Your water revenues and your wastewater revenues both increased due to higher usage and rates, but you did have a decrease in expenses, which kind of helped increase that change in that position. The decrease in cash is again due to the bond repayments, and you keep on purchasing and investing in your capital assets. Your overall asset additions were lower than last year, but you still added about $6.5 million worth of assets to your infrastructure. But you did overall have a positive cash flow from your operations, about $5.3 million. So you continue to have good cash flow to help support those asset additions and support the bond repayments.
I have a question, if I could.
Yeah.
So on the water rate increase, that only took effect, I think, December of last year. So that's rather insignificant compared to the usage then, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, it plays a little bit of part, but the big increase in usage was the main driver for the rate increase, but it's just something that you would see a little bit of pickup there in December.
Okay.
I do think the city of Baxter had a huge increase in usage, so I can't remember exactly why, but that was another big driver for that increase. Any other questions? Next slide is just kind of laying out the change in net position. So electric had a lower but still a positive change in net position. Water department had a net gain this year compared to net loss last year, which is great to see. Wastewater had, again, a higher net gain compared to last year, and we advise, as always, to continue to monitor your margins for each department to be consistent, and then make sure you monitor and assess your rates every single year to make sure that they're where you want to be.
Can you tell me the dollar amount of difference in water between last year and this year, and the dollar amount gain over the loss?
Gain or loss, do you have that?
Apologize for that.
So,
Roughly.
meaning it had a positive change in that position of 68,000 compared to negative 622,000? Is that what you're looking for?
We had a negative of 600 and some thousand last year,
Last
so
year.
that's over almost 700,000.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And that is all we had. Any questions from anybody?
And then Danny, I think electric margin went down. You're charging a different rate for crypto, right? So I think that was your big decrease in your margin. So just continue to monitor that and make sure it's where you want it to be. I know that's a big piece of your revenue and expense right now. That's why purchase power went up so much. So just continue to monitor that and make sure that's where you want it to be.
Any questions? No? Well, thank you.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to commission committee reports. Oh, do we need to make a motion
I
as
would make
opposed
a
to?
motion to approve the audit presentation as
Second.
presented.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next is commission committee reports.
So the Personnel Committee met a lot this last year, but Chris has most of it in her report, but I think ultimately on the Personnel Committee position of the interim Public Utilities Director, it is felt that we would like to move forward with a permanent Public Utilities Director to fill that position and forego the interim. So that would be the recommendation from Personnel Committee to the Commission, with hopes that that could be our recommendation to City Council, since they have a motion right now to fill an interim position.
Is that a motion?
Our motion, yes, is to fill the Public Utilities Director with a permanent employee as opposed to interim.
Is there a second? What do I need to do in order to make a second on
So Mike becomes,
that? To who?
I'll take it.
No, you don't get it. I would second the motion.
We have a motion on the floor. Any discussion?
I have a question, if I could. Based on the charter language now, have we made a determination that is it the purview of the Public Utilities Commission to make this as, and then does this take standing over the Personnel and Finance Committee and via the City Council action we took to move forward, or not even exactly sure if we looked at an interim position and then kind of both simultaneously? And again, I'm not challenging your motion, I just want clarity.
no, and how I would reply to that, and please, anybody can correct me if I am wrong, but it falls under the needs of the operation of the facility. And at this point, the overview or the feeling of the Personnel Committee was that we wouldn't want to belabor the entire organization again with an interim, just to have to go through the process again of filling the position. So at this point, we would like to continue with our 6-month with the vendor that sought the initial Public Utilities Director to fill that position and move forward that way. So again, it kind of comes back to what are the needs of the organization, and then it goes back into our vagueness of our city charter language of the purview of the Public Utilities Commission is to make sure that we have staffing and the needs of the organization to continue operating it the way it needs to be, so.
If I could, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I appreciate that explanation. So then, would you say maybe that we were a little premature in the recommendation coming out of Personnel and Finance to move forward with the direction we did here back a month or so ago? Or
Yes, as far as give the direction of interim, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but after closer review and discussion, I would agree, yes, Jeff.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
I guess as far, is there any other discussion other than me? I guess I don't believe that we need to fill this position, so I'm voting no and wouldn't second the motion, just so everybody knows. Any other discussion? Is it a roll call, or what is it?
Do a roll call.
Roll call, vote?
Higgins,
No.
Matten,
Yes,
O'Day.
Yes.
Motion passed. You can have it back.
Okay. Anything else, Dolly?
nope.
Finance Operations Committee? You want to handle any of this, Mike? Or-
No, I'll take the gavel and you can do it.
Request for proposal for construction management contract, reclaimed tank. Go ahead, Danny.
I can speak to the motion, or the request. So as part of the reclaim tank construction process, we went out for bids in November. The bids came back higher than anticipated. We rejected all those bids in November, December timeframe. We had discussed at that point of going out and rebidding, and talking with Bolton and Mank. The suggestion was to do this construction at risk bid process to get us better pricing and a not to exceed pricing. Morgan from Bolton and Mank is here if we have any questions for him, but that is their recommendation, and the recommendation of staff is to move forward with requesting those bids and going out for a sealed bid for a construction at-risk management for the reclaimed tanks.
And, okay, is it, I would move to move forward with this.
Second for discussion. May I?
Open for discussion.
So I'm trying to understand what are the pros and cons to a construction at risk or a construction manager at risk. Can you explain that? I mean, I'm trying to read through it, but it doesn't make much sense to me.
Morgan Salo, Bolton and Mink. So a construction manager at risk, or CMAR process, is a lot of schools and municipal buildings get constructed with this. So what the utility is effectively doing is you are getting proposals from a contractor, and you are selecting a contractor that you want to work with to help value engineer scope the project to meet what's called a guaranteed maximum price. If you have a budget in mind, let's say $5 million, we can scope that project down and work with the contractor to get down to, we can build this for $5 million. So it's a lot more transparency in the process. And so it does provide a lot more value. The contract is still between the city utility and the contractor, but we are designing with the contractor. And we're asking, hey, is it going to be more cost effective to do X, Y, and Z versus if we do this? Is it going to be more cost effective if we procure this material versus this material? So you get a lot more say in a lot of the decisions that get made at the bidding time with the CMAR contractor. And so there's a lot more transparency in the process. You get value engineering out of it, and you can scope a project to meet your specific budgets.
Rather than the other process of scoping it initially, working with staff. Staff is far more involved or time
Yep.
constraint on them, and then having to come back and you're playing back and forth.
And and then the open bid process too. When you get a sealed bid for the whole project, you don't know, is that going to come in? You know, in this case, it came in higher than what the utility was budgeted for, and so you don't run that risk in this instance with the CMAR, because you can tell them I have a dollar amount of X as my budget, and then we work towards scoping that project, value engineering it to be under that budget, including the CMAR contingency fee and any extras that they may have in that process.
So with that being said, then, the cost to have a construction manager at risk, what is the cost to the utility, and where do you see the cost balancing out the savings piece of it, besides staff time?
So there's a couple different areas with that. So to get a CMAR on board is, it's hard to say, relatively inexpensive, but you're not bidding the project at that time. You're going to select a CMAR for a fee, typically a smaller fee. I can't say, I've seen a wide range of them. We're doing one in Aiken right now, and it was very reasonable. That process could take 6 to 12 months to design, right, for that small fee, and then the contractor goes out and bids that project. 9 times out of 10, they bid to themselves. And so the typical CMAR contractors we work with are the ones that normally bid our water wastewater projects. And so they're very well versed in understanding how this process works. CMAR is newer in the water wastewater realm. There was a statute change at the legislature in 2023 that allowed CMAR to be used for municipal funded projects. Prior to that, it wasn't regularly used in municipal projects for water, wastewater. But again, your schools and other government buildings typically have used a CMAR process. So your cost savings come in more transparency with being, hey, staff wants to do this, contractor comes back and says, hey, that's going to cost you an extra $1 million if we do it that way. We can save you $300,000 by doing this. And so there's just transparency throughout the entire process.
And that the staff and the city is still very involved.
Yes, they're almost more involved with the contractor because you're meeting with the contractor, talking through that entire process versus working with the engineer and saying, hey, what do you guys want? What do you want this to look like? What kind of fascia do you want to have in this? What kind of brick do you want? We'll design that in there. Now we can talk to the contractor and say, get us a price for this. What is this going to cost us? Can we do alternative foundation design? What is dewatering going to take? Can we move this on the site to a more cost-effective location?
Does this put a limit then on your potential change orders?
It can. It definitely can. A lot of times there's a contingency. There's a contractor CMAR fee that they build into the GMP, which is a guaranteed maximum price, and then there's a contingency that's typically built in. In a lot of projects, we build in what's called an allowance. So it's basically just some extra money that's bid with the project that you can use on various aspects of the project. That contingency fee is typically built in to cover any miscellaneous changes. Ideally, everything you've scoped out is in that GMP, and that's what they go and bid. If you were to ask for, hey, we want to change this, and it's different than the bidding documents, yes, there's a potential for a cost change there. But overall, the stuff that you scope out and is in the GMP is what they bid.
Is it kind of like a design build type thing?
It's very similar to a design build. There's design build, there's design bid build, and this is the CMR, which is very similar to that design build. There's a couple different steps in there just with how you arrive at the GMP, because this one has a budget. And if you're going to go over that budget, there has to be a documentation of why are we going over that budget when you bid it the way we scoped it.
Thank you for that
So,
explanation.
does that make sense? Is that clear? It's a process that's being used a lot more, especially in water wastewater with the cost of these projects. And it does provide a lot more transparency in the process.
Any more discussion?
don't care either way what we do. I would caution staff to understand there was another project that happened similar to this in our region a few years ago, and they forgot to like add furniture for some of the brand new rooms they built. And at the end of the deal, they got in a lot of trouble and ran into a lot of expenses. So I don't mind this process, but I think staff needs to be very highly involved just to make sure that we're getting what we need as a utility. So that's all.
And that's the same process. And in this instance with the reclaim tank, we already have a design done. And so we are trying to value engineer that to a point where it's like, hey, we have a budget in mind. We can afford this. We work with the contractor, get a CMAR on board, work with them and say, how do we cut the cost of getting this piping from point A to point B? Because we know some of the areas that were expensive, we can kind of value engineer some of those areas and make sure that, again, to your point, that the city gets the things that they need in that facility. That everything that is being bid with that is approved and the city understands what is included in that.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I don't know why, but
All those in favor?
aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Passes.
Okay, next is discuss approve credit card transaction processor. Danny?
Thank you. The staff have been reviewing credit card transactions. This has been on a conversation we've been having for over a year now. Our credit card processor raised their fees again 100% here in February. So at that time, staff have now requested quotes for credit card transaction processing. The challenge we're having with our credit card processing is that the general ledger package we use only allows certain processors. So we have a limited number of quotes that we are able to go and get that work and fully integrate with the general ledger package. So with Tyler Encode, that is what we're working with. So we are obtaining those 3 quotes. We have heard 2 of those presentations. We are waiting on the 3rd. Initial indications are we can save a considerable amount of money by switching processors. Items for us to consider in a switch that we would like commission direction on is one of the options would change our customer-facing portal, and that could lead to questions from customers. Does commission have any desire to change that? Staff have seen that demonstration. It seems fairly straightforward, easy for staff to talk through any changes with customers, but a question we wanted to ask the commission if that is something that they even wanted to be interested in doing.
Savings are significant. Why wouldn't we?
Agreed.
It would be nice to see the demo, though, to see what it would, how the difference, what it would be. I mean, is it drastically different for the customer? Are you going to be spending a ton of time?
No, it's fairly intuitive, like go through like your normal checkout process at any online vendor would be what it looked like. It was very easy for the 4 staff that were in to follow. We thought it was cleaner.
Okay.
We have an option with Tyler payments themselves. The customer would not notice a difference, and we would still have some savings. We're still waiting on final quotes and final numbers to
Okay.
identify that savings.
So this page,
Once-
this next page is your examples.
Correct. The following page then shows the examples, the summary per the item transaction. This is outlining what Global has charged us. So you see there's an average of 212% increase from the last year, from April 1st of 25 to March 1st of 24. When we look back, we have a 300% increase in our discount rate and item rate. The item rate and the bottom, like 4 items on this are per transaction. So that is what's driving the increases. We are seeing this everywhere. I've talked to several other cities as well. They are seeing this as well. So it's not unique to our situation.
How much lead time is needed once you make a decision?
120 days, and we have early, so we have a 36-month contract right now with Global. There are termination fees. I believe they're $500 per merchant ID. We have 3, so we're looking at $1,500 in termination fees, which when you look at the savings is, I'll say, insignificant. But 120 days is needed for that transition and turnover.
Do we have to give them notice then?
We would, yes.
Well, I mean, that's obvious. We're not going to go with Global, so why wouldn't we just go forward with that? Getting that submitted. I mean. and
That'll
then-
take, the couple of quotes that we've heard about, the termination time, it's 120 days for them to come online. So we'd want to wait on that notice
Oh,
until.
okay, I see. I thought you meant we
Yes.
had to give
Global's
120
quicker,
days
yep.
notice that, okay.
No, yeah.
All right. So you'll come back with this next meeting? We don't,
Yes, as long as commission is okay with, if we're looking at changing portals and find the cheapest option is what I'm assuming the commission is in favor of, but we wanted to ask that.
seems like an easy decision.
Yep.
Okay. Unfinished business. Memo? I don't remember what that is. Go ahead.
So the unfinished business memo is just our updates of the ongoing things that we have. We had the lead service items. The one biggest item for us to look at as we look at, and it's on as the next item on the contract, would be the hydro generation project. And then I guess the question is, are there any other questions on any of the other items before moving on to that?
Just item F, the system impact studies. I was just curious on the electric transmission service, Brainerd. Minnesota Power, the next step for the process, are they doing an impact study and the cost?
Great question. We don't have a cost on that yet. We'll have to do an application for them to do that impact study, so I can provide more feedback at a later date if that's something we still want to pursue.
Okay. Do we have to let you know that right this very minute?
You do not.
Okay, I just wanted clarification on that. Thank you.
Okay. Then we move to item B, is discuss Flaherty and Hood lobbying contract for hydro generation. Go ahead, Danny, you want to tell?
So as the commission knows, we hired a lobbyist to discuss the hydrogeneration project. That was Marty Seifert with Flaherty and Hood. He was the one that helped us when we were down at the Capitol discussing the project with the Energy Committee. His contract that we have, we signed a 15-month contract through, and it ends June 30th of this year. The question, we have options. We could extend with Marty for 12 months at $25,000. We could extend through December 31st of 2027 for $45,000. We could look into looking and talking with MMUA and their legislative team with Bill Black, or we could work with our own contracts to discuss, or our own contacts, excuse me, to discuss and continue the efforts on the generation project. The latest update from Marty is that both the Senate and the House have picked up our bill, so it is on those individuals to carry that through. The discussion items at the Capitol are whether or not those bills will even be open for discussion at this point. At this point, they have not been opened. The other caveat or item that we have noted as of the last meeting is that and Trent can correct me if I'm wrong, but the generators that the Bar engineering team had picked out, the manufacturers have paused all manufacturing on the type of generator we were going to install in the pit. So there are multiple vendors and contractors that supply that type of equipment. All of them have paused production. The anticipated cheapest option has halted production indefinitely at this point in time. So we're kind of working with Bar to determine additional options at this point. So this might be a question we ask once we know more on generator technology that we need to review and look into. But at this point, that is what staff has asked BAR to do. We're looking for direction from commission on how they would like to proceed, if we should be signing another contract with Marty Seifert at Flaherty and Hood, waiting some time to identify what our needs might be.
At this point, why wouldn't we just terminate that contract with Marty and then figure out over the next few months which way we want to go? I'm not so sure I know what MMUA offers, for one. I mean, we can always start a new contract with Marty later. Doesn't have to be July 1st. I would,
And I would agree with that. I think that, I feel there's huge value in having a presence in St. Paul. But at this point, I mean, it seems like we're at a major roadblock, that we would almost be throwing money away if we extended this at this point, not knowing what our other options might be. So I would agree with that. But again, I'm a huge advocate of having someone present always down at the state capitol, lobbying on our behalf. But I think there's too many things that we don't know at this point that we wouldn't and shouldn't probably extend this contract at this time.
would MMUA request additional money if we go that route?
I do not know that, Trent.
We would have to follow up on that one, but what I can say is, I dropped the ball on this one, did not notify MMUA that we were going down to testify. I didn't even think of it. Bill Black was monitoring the schedule and seeing that we were on the schedule and actually appeared at the hearing for us, just to support us. And so more conversations could definitely happen with MMUA, but I'm not sure what their financial or what their fees may be, if there's any, but we could follow up. We kind of wanted to take this step here, decide if we were going to continue to use this services here or look at other options, so.
I think we'd be crazy not to do the extension through 2027 with Marty. I think that if we want to raise $10, $12 million to rebuild our dam, that we need to keep our presence in St. Paul. I've met with Senator Heinzman and Congressman Heinzman. The bills are probably not going to get opened because of all the crap that's going on down there. But I think that dam needs investment money and we need help. And we should continue keeping our, lobbyists keep our requests at the top of the stack. If we don't have a lobbyist, that we're going to go to the bottom of the stack, and it's going to be very hard to keep our foot in the door just in case. I think for the amount of money we're trying to raise and that we need, the $45,000 is a kick in the bucket.
So I would make a motion to table this until next commission meeting when we have answers from MMUA, because it doesn't expire until June 30th, and we would meet before then.
I would second that motion.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next item is approve SCR lowest quote main lift makeup air unit.
You want me to take it, Charlie?
Yes, this is pertaining to the grit and screening building that we chose to do inside. That is the next step in the protection for safe work environment. So it will be the lowest bid, and that's where we're at. So
Okay,
that being said, we got two competitive bids, and line for line, that's who staff recommends to go for.
Danny?
We had a budget of $150,000 that we carried over from 2024 for this line item. So we're coming in under that $150,000 budget as well.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? No? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Do we need a roll call on a monetary motion? No? Okay. Good to go. Okay, we'll move on to new business, tower mixer quote.
I can take that one. So as part of our review and KLM's assessment of the water tower. So this is where it's talking the downtown water tower. They had suggested putting a mixer in the water tower. There is not one there now. This will help improve water quality. They, in looking and discussing with staff and then in discussing with KLM, there's an option to put in this mixer. The mixer itself is less than $25,000. There's about $9,000 in this $30,000 presented for electrical work. There'll be a determination of whether we have KLM do that or we can do that internally. But the recommendation from staff is to move forward with KLM's recommendation to put a mixer in and determine how that improves our water quality.
Is there a motion?
I'd make a motion to approve this.
Second.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So you say improve the water quality. Where are we suffering right now? And is this kind of like a shot in the dark to see if it helps the quality? I mean, where's our quality suffering? Is it the amount of the chlorine? Is it? I thought that was more because of the distribution factor, or what's the real issue here?
I can take that. In any volume of water, it'll stratify depending on temperature, and so first in, first out. So if we're running a stage or a set point of a turnover the tower, it could potentially be just first in, first out without mixing the tank. It stratifies. So you'll have aged water at the top, or just like temperature and so on affects that to keep the tanks fully mixed and homogenized, so that the water quality going in and out is equal instead of having something that's stratified.
Okay, thank you very much.
So we didn't install this initially.
The downtown tower, the 1 million gallon tank that we're referring to right now, no, there is nothing in there for a mixing whatsoever.
But the other two have them?
The south tower has one. The state hospital, as we refer to it, or Tower 2, does not.
Which would be, we would be doing this on the state hospital then too, because that would make sense if we're doing it downtown, or we just want to?
Yes, we'll be looking at the reservoirs, we'll be looking at all of them. This is just the first step in that direction.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is discuss Brainerd Community Action beautification ideas. Mayor Bedeau.
Dave Bedeau, Executive Director of Brainerd Community Action, 321 South 7th Street, Brainerd. Before you, we have two projects that we've been approached by a couple different groups and asked if we'd be interested in and involve the city and public utilities. We brought this forward to the city council at their last meeting, and they gave us a general consensus to move forward, bringing it to you guys. The first of which I believe is a banner program. So, maybe a little bit over a year ago, former County Administrator Tim Gould had approached me and said, I thought I looked directly at it. Look at that. I'm just loud. I'm not going to start the whole thing over, but a year ago, roughly, former County Administrator Tim Gould approached me and said how great it would be if we did some kind of banner program in that area between City Hall here and the county buildings. We've got those decorative light posts, and so we took a look at it and saw what that could potentially be. What we are proposing to you is a banner program that we would run that would be for people to get either banners for active service members, previous service members, or those that have lost their lives, and then we would hang those up on an annual basis. The drawback to this is that those poles, about every other one has banner brackets, but they only have the top banner bracket. The bottom half, and you can kind of see it in the picture, is just a hook for a triangle-shaped banner. So what we're proposing is that we would fund this completely, but we would want to have a bottom bracket put on those poles so that we could hang the banners. And then we would like to if at all possible, do this on a yearly basis where people would purchase the banner, we would put it up. I think we can manage that. We could take a look at it, but I think they're low enough that we could manage putting them up and down. And then at the end of each season, we would give those back to the people that have purchased them as a keepsake with the option of putting them back up the next year. So time frame, we'd like to do it May prior to Memorial Day, and then run it for sure through the 4th of July, but probably through the entire summer process. So that's that one there. What we're looking at is every other pole, because you can see the second pole behind it there, those are hanging baskets. I don't think we want to mess with that. So we were thinking we'd find out what the cost would be to put that bottom bracket on. We would ask BPU to do that process for us, and then we would work with figuring out what the process for getting them up and down would look like.
How many total poles are there?
You know, I didn't run the full number there, so we would want to do both sides, left and right, and I want to say it's probably roughly 10 to 15 poles per side, but then you've got your every other, so it wouldn't be a ton of poles, but it's about a 2-block radius or 2-block area.
You mentioned the top bracket was already in place, but the next pole shows a much smaller top bracket, so do all of them need to be replaced?
So that's the hanging baskets. We
Okay.
figured we'd just leave those alone.
Okay, so
that-
is it alternating
It
every
would be
other?
alternating, yep.
Okay.
So it'd be every second pole. But again, yeah, just the triangle brackets or the triangle banners just wouldn't allow for enough space to get people's names and stuff on there.
Personally, I love the idea, and I think it's a fantastic idea. It's going to be a matter of staffing, and is it something that we can we do this for?
Yes, I think this is, I also agree, it's a wonderful project. We can definitely fit this into that time frame, time of year for us, fits well. The poles are engineered to have banners on them, so there's no concerns from the operations side of BPU.
Love it.
I 1,000% support this idea as well.
Do you know the estimated cost of the banners?
I do not. We've run it before with the city. We did there's been banners that have been done downtown. We did the ones for the 150-year anniversary. Those are a little bit smaller than what we'd like. So cost-wise,
They're not a couple $100.
yeah, it's not too bad. We would like to run this as a fundraiser. And we have partnered with the Panda Project, which is a local group that works with veteran suicide. So we'd like to try to get enough to kind of disperse a little bit in some different directions. But again, just even for just the 4th of July purposes, it would be fantastic for us, so.
So you said they're only up for the summer. What then after that?
We'd like to take them down, we'd like to give them back to people so that they can have them, and then for a reduced rate, they could put them back up the next year. What I don't want to do is have banners that become tattered and torn, especially with that type of imagery on there. If it's people's names, we'd like to keep them nice, so.
Is the VFW and American Legion involved with this then, too?
I have not approached them yet. The Brainerd Lions did mention they would be interested. I haven't approached anybody yet. We wanted to get approval first. We're not going to try and push this through this year. We want to take a full year. That's why we're bringing it up now. Let's take a full year. Let's get it right. I don't want this to be something that ends up being an eyesore for such an important process.
Yeah. Okay. So from what I hear, we're all good with that.
Okay, that's number one. Number two, we were approached by a group of artists that are interested in decorating of electrical boxes. We like the idea. There obviously is a little bit more trepidation, I think, from the council on this one, not in that they don't like the idea, in that art is subject to people's opinions and could get squirrely real fast. So the two artists that we've worked with have a long-standing history of creating art that has been used in the city. We worked with them on the Cookie Project this last winter. Tony Powers is one of the artists as well. He has the two murals, the You Betcha, as well as the one at the Legion. And we think we could do something fun and exciting. There's a couple different variations of your guys' electrical boxes. There's the one that's shown here, which is obviously kind of the Taste de Resistance. It's right next to City Hall. It's beautiful, it's brand new, it's smooth. It would be very easy to do. But then there's also the ones, and I mentioned the one in the alley of Bremer Bank that is just becoming a little less sightly. So we'd like to kind of work with your staff and identify some that could potentially be rehabilitated, and then give them just a little bit of spice of life.
Those aren't ours.
Those ones aren't yours?
Those types aren't the DOTs. Those
Yeah,
are-
that's what I thought.
Those are all. for
Which is
life.
fine, which is fine. We noticed that on the one
Yep.
right on 210, and there's also the one on Oak Street. So those would be fantastic.
We did lay the groundwork on this a few years ago, and we did approve certain ones had to come to the commission, because there was big concern about the stickers remaining exposed. 'Cause
Yes.
We talked about wraps, and then we talked about working with the downtown Brainerd, the artist downtown Brainerd.
Yes.
To create designs so that they can come, that we would create a committee to approve designs before they went, onto the electrical boxes. But yes, I know these specifically, these types aren't art. But I know Jesse has a question or comment.
I can just mention that the DOT has approved art on traffic signal control boxes in the past, and Wilmer comes to mind. It's just a permit process and approval process.
And we don't have to start with those ones either. Those are just, they're easy, they're large. But we took a lot of time and went around and tried to identify which ones could potentially be used. Fifth Street comes to mind as there's a ton of them. The library's right there, the school district's right there. And they would be easy to do. They're at least a little longer. And again, in terms of art, I'd like to stay away from activism type of stuff and just keep it as something that is beautification. We had some conversations with some council members about potentially Paul Bunyan type themed stuff or things around that nature, things that are a little bit less, let's say artsy fartsy. How about that? That's a good term for it. And I said this at the council meeting. As an artist myself, I take no offense to anyone not liking art. That's the way that it is. If you want to put something out into the world, it's subjective. But in terms of what a city is interested in, it should be something pretty basic. So
Walleyes, whitetails, and whiskey.
there you go. I love it. Whiskey
I
at
was
the top.
just in a community in Wisconsin for a couple days where they must have implemented some kind of program like this, and it looked awesome.
Yeah.
Everywhere you went, you saw, it's a paper mill town, so it was paper mill themed, and it looked really good.
Yeah, I do want to push back slightly on committee type stuff because, again, as an artist, that stuff gets really homogenized really quickly. But we'd want to make sure that we're presenting something that the city is interested in, so.
The only question really for us, though, is can you paint them or wrap them? Do we have a problem with that?
We'd have to take a look at the wrapping, but the technology's came a long ways. The only concerns we may have is if it's preventing the transformer from cooling or the cabinet from cooling, but technology's came a long ways, so I think we can definitely accomplish that.
And we have to make sure we don't cover up identifying tags, safety stuff, all that.
Yeah,
The lineman art isn't as pretty as the art that you have, but it's required that we have that on there. So
Yeah.
we can work with the placement of that stuff and maybe look at some other opportunities, but I can support this.
We're not going to be involved at all in what you do as far as what's painted. You can take those complaints.
I will take those complaints on personally, so.
Really?
Yeah, I
Really?
will. Absolutely.
We got that on
Of
recording.
all the things I get yelled at, art not being pretty is fine with me.
It'll be under some intense scrutiny.
Yeah. We'd like to work with your staff and maybe identify a handful of them. I think our artists would like to kind of start in areas that are not quite so visible, just in terms of it's difficult to sit there and paint while people are hounding you. But there's also a couple that could use a little bit of sharpening up, so.
I got a couple.
Okay, yeah. So if we could identify those, and they're everywhere. Once we started driving around, they're literally everywhere, so.
So Trent, can you work with them to move forward with it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Perfect.
I don't think we need a motion because this
No.
was already approved some time
Okay.
ago, so.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, they're just.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great.
Okay, we'll move on then to staff reports. City Administrator report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a written report. I missed the deadline to get in the packet, so that's on me. I apologize. I'll get that remedied for next time. I'll just hit a couple of the highlights. The city also is going through their audit right now. The deadline for completion is June 30th, and the results will be presented to the City Council in July. Couple other items for as far as community development. For Country Manor, the groundbreaking ceremony is scheduled for June 10th. We are working with the YMCA Executive Director Shane Riffle on an expanded YMCA project. City Council did approve a not-to-exceed amount of $5,000 to go out for an RFP to talk to consultants that are in the business of bringing together a financing mechanism to pay for high-priced projects. So we'll be working through the why with that. We had a fire request. There was a statewide request. You guys recall the fires north of Two Harbors, about the middle of May sometime. We did receive a request, and we did deploy one team to go help out with that. They were there for a night, maybe 2 nights, and then they came back, so that was a good thing for the city. Technology department is making some hires. They've hired a GIS specialist, a technology specialist, and a network administrator. Network administrator is to begin mid-June. I've met the other 2, so we're getting some good people on the staff. Airport director resigned on May 7th. So the airport commission is working through that process of backfilling that position and advertising. So more to follow on that. And I think that's the highlights. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions? No? Thank you. City Council Liaison Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did one thing at our last meeting that y'all might be interested in, more of the code enforcement. It's not going to be just complaint-driven on our major corridors, such as our 210, 371, Oak Street, Mill Avenue, I believe is one where we'll have staff reviewing that on more of the staff level. If they see things, that'll come forward to our community development department, and then also within 300 feet of that and around parks. So try to take the more visible areas of the city to have a little bit more enforcement, which I think that was unanimously, well, it wasn't, Mr. Johnson voted against it, but he, other than that, it's interesting, I found that watching the Planning and Zoning Committee, Commission meeting the other night with the St. Francis, they're coming forward with the request for the I believe it's rezoning and street vacation. That's a public hearing coming up that the council approved. That was a 4-1 vote, I think, in favor of allowing that by the P&Z Commission, and that'll be on our meeting coming up on the 2nd of June. So that's something to look forward to see how that goes. So other than that, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I have just a question on the complaint-driven part of that. Does it have to be a neighbor? Can it be anybody? What if someone comes with a list of 4 pages and said, here, these are the bad ones in the city? What happens?
You could live in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and drive through Brainerd. As far as I understand, you could call our city, and Mr. Kramvik would take your call. As a nice individual he is, and he would note your concern and probably have our Mr. Stockinger go out and address the issue. If it's legit, they'll notify the citizen that owns that property that they need to improve it or fix it or whatever it might be. So that's how I understand it to be.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course, now they'll have more of the major areas, corridors of the city being addressed by staff. So that's the change we made.
Okay.
It's entirely complaint-driven.
All right. Move on then to C, HR Director Report.
There is a written report in your packet, if you have any questions. Otherwise, I have nothing else to add.
Does anyone have a question for Chris? No? Okay. We'll move on. Finance Manager Report. Danny?
So just one thing to highlight is the attorney discussions with Attorney Lingle have been happening, and then as well as Spencer Fain on the purchase power agreement with Blockmetrics. Those are ongoing. We hope to have a contract here this week ready to present to Blockmetrics. And nothing additional. I'll answer any questions.
With that, I mean, some of this stuff has been going to committees, and you've kind of backed out on this Blockmetrics contract, correct?
Was told I had to.
Well, so that would be a yes. I don't know if Dolly and Danny, or Dolly and Mike Englund are available to help review. That was mentioned, or if Mike can't make it, or, I mean, I'm available too, if you have 2 of them who want to review it, I don't know.
So when we review it, and if we have concerns, questions, like to some changes and whatever, is the contract going to be brought back to commission for a final review, or is it going to get signed with any modifications that we recommend this week?
I would entertain sending it to Block Metrics to get their comments
Okay.
as well as
Okay.
your comments. So I'm waiting for commission comments, and then I'll have Administrator Broyles look it over as well. James Kramvik has seen it.
Okay.
We'll have all of our comments go, and then I would anticipate
Perfect.
going to Block Metrics to ask them if they would have any changes so that we can get a contract. in
And
front of you.
Kayla, our attorney, is also helping us with this.
Correct. And Langle as well has seen it.
Okay.
Do you see this coming back then to commission at the end of June if everybody seems to give the thumbs up on it?
Yes, that would be my anticipation. Yep.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Anything else?
I do not.
Okay. Operations Manager Report.
Thank you. A verbal report for me this month. May screamed past and it's already come and gone, so I did not have time to get a written packet in the packet, but I'll hit a couple of highlights that we have. Working through with Climavision right now. Mostly right now we're working through the state and the actual site itself where we have easements and where we don't have easements. So we're making good progress there. The state's willing to do a license agreement with us. They're willing to draft that so we can bring it back for presentation. So we have a few bulletin items that we're working through with Climavision right now. Electrical plans, where the crane would be set up, things of that nature. So essentially, for lack of a better term, a temporary easement for us to have a crane on site to set that on top. They're very much in favor of this and willing to work with us towards it. So we're still grinding away on that. Hopefully some more action items here coming in the next week or so. Hydro rains in early May have helped us be successful. We've been able to turn on generators 4 and 5 for about 9 hours a day since about May 6th, May 7th. So we've seen some extra capacity and water flows there. That's been a benefit for us at the dam. Typically on a 25-year average, we're seeing about 6,000 cubic feet per day at the dam, and we're down to about 3,500 right now. So we're still seeing those lower flows, but making progress and able to run some of those generators. Water distribution, we're still doing our directional flushing. That's going well. Continue to work towards that. We did have an opportunity last week to do a tour of the Waters plant down in South St. Paul. So myself and 3 of our distribution crew members were able to attend that. It was an excellent tour. They do our gate valves, they do hydrants, they do pumpers on fire trucks. So as we move into different materials into our distribution system, we've been very much a ductile iron for many, many, many years. Now that we're moving into plastic and other things, it felt important that we were able to get down to the factory to see what the new connectors and stuff look like. So very beneficial. That was about a 3-hour tour. I highly recommend it if anybody has the opportunity to take that tour. I would definitely do it. It was very, very well done. Thank you to them. Electric distribution crew is currently right now having a pretty big outage on our main sub, and luckily none of us are noticing that. So we're doing some maintenance work out there today. We came in early, started doing some switching. Hats off to them. A lot of this work landed in their laps to design and put it together, and so I'm very happy with the outcome of that, and they're doing a great job as we speak right now. Nothing else unless there's questions for me.
Any questions for Trent? No? Thank you. Water Wastewater Manager Report.
Yes, thank you. A few things in my report that may get buried, but looking at the start-go for land application of biosolids and all the new paperwork that we have to do with that, we got a little bit of a slow start, but ended strong. And I just want to say appreciation goes to the wastewater and water guys for getting 160 trucks out and applied before the corn crop went in and beans. So kudos, great staff, managed it very well. So that along with the lead and copper. First half lead and copper are out, and we have a deadline of June 30th to get them back and into the lab. So right now we're focusing on that. So that's where I'm at. Any questions?
No, you're heading up to Breezy on May 20th? Or you already did that? How was that?
We did that. We presented, we had to get our renewal for type 4 land application of biosolids, and the agency, MPCA, requested or asked if we would present our program, and so we did. The operators all did. I just facilitated. So did a great job. Good attendance, and a lot of questions out there with the new rules, so.
Awesome. You wouldn't have let us know that they presented had I not asked. That's awesome. Mhm.
Well, I put it in the report. Is
that it?
Any other questions?
Not many.
Concerns?
Nope. Commission members report. Anybody have anything else?
I just want to thank our managers for all the extra time that they put in this last month in going over some of the staffing questions and meetings that we have had. I know it's added, but we really appreciate your guys' time and really understanding and appreciating all of the cross-training that sometimes we don't speak enough about. And it's very much appreciated, the skill level that all of our employees in the operations actually obtain through your guys' leadership. So it's very much appreciated, and it should be noted. So that's all I have.
Anything else? Danny?
If commissioners are interested in going, there's the legislative update by MMUA. That's June 18th at 5 PM in Grand Rapids. That was the same presentation, their new presentation. It was here in Brainerd last year. I know one commissioner is interested in going. So if there's going to be a quorum potentially, we might want to adjourn to that meeting.
With that, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. You should adjourn to that meeting.
Is there anybody else going? I guess
I'm
that's the
not.
question. And Mike?
I'm not.
All right, then we
In
won't have
Louisiana.
that danger of a quorum. All right.
Okay, we're adjourned.
Beautiful.